Hello, my name is Jeremiah Morales, and here we have the alpha female, where matriarchy leads the way. We are so accustomed to hearing in our society that men are bigger, stronger, faster, even smarter than women, and that even transpires into the animal kingdom. You see, we think that because men have a higher, more significant status than women do, then it must be true for the animal kingdom. But what if I told you females can be alphas too? You see, it's time for us to stop this sexist appeal about men and female and realize that female are just as or even more dominant than men are, especially in the animal kingdom. Today you will learn about female dominance in the animal kingdom. I will be reviewing 2 types of insects, bees and ants, and 3 mammals, hyenas, naked mole rats, and bonobos monkeys. First, we'll go over the ants and bees. You see, ants and bees are a lot similar than we think, and according to Terminex, one of the most popular pest control companies in the entire world, they have very similar structures and hierarchies. They have at the top the queen. She's in charge of breeding all of the bees, especially the workers, and maintaining order within the entire hive. Then we go down, or hive or colony, because that's for both ants and bees, and workers, which are all females, and those are produced by the queen. They're in charge of cleaning the hive or colony, finding food for the hive or colony, and also feeding the hive or colony. That's also attending to the eggs that the queen produces. On top of that, we have the drones. The drones are at the very, very bottom of the hierarchy chain, and they are the males, the only males of the hive or colony. In fact, they are produced typically by the workers, because the workers can lay eggs as well. Now, when the queen dies, now what happens when the queen dies? Usually the hive or colony just disappears. And that is because without the queen, we can't produce workers. So that means the workers are only producing drones, and because the drones do absolutely nothing, because their only significance to the entire production or process of the hive or colony is to mate with the queen. And after they mate with the queen, they die. That's pretty much it. That is the significance of the male. Then the productivity of the bee or hive, the hive or the colony decreases. And if that decreases, then the colony or hive slowly disappears. So what happens when we need a new queen? Well, they usually choose an egg and they feed it with what they call royal jelly. And that just basically allows for this egg to grow into the form of a queen. So, if I must reiterate, drones, which are males, they live to mate with the queen, they die. And the only ones who stay living are the females. Next, we'll go over hyenas. We're going to go into the mammal section now. Hyenas also have a hierarchy. The queen is at the top. Then we have the adult females, female offspring, male offspring, and then adult males. As you can see, the offspring have more status than the males, but the females have more status than the male offspring. They have a very distinct way of recognizing each member of their clan, and that is with scent. The queen has a distinct scent, and so does her offspring. But what's even more interesting that is, if the queen were to have a boy and a girl, the girl will have much more status than any other member in the entire clan, but the boy won't. In fact, the adult females, which are absolutely irrelevant to the status of the queen, have more than the boy. If I were to rephrase, even though the son, he is the son of the queen, he has less status than any other female in the clan. Weird, right? And if you were to observe the behavior between the queen and her son, she is much more aggressive with the son than she is with the daughter. And that is because she is preparing him for a cruel world in which he has absolutely no status, and hopes that he may one day mate with another queen. Another big factor is hormonal. Hormones within the hyena allow for it to have, the female to have ambiguous genitalia. They produce more androgens. And this makes so that their clitoris is overgrown and it looks like a penis. So at times it's hard to distinguish between the two. But in a way, this allows for them to be seen as an equal or even more highly to the male. Because not only do they look the same, but they can do what they can, which is reproduce. In many aspects, they are stronger and bigger than the men, and they will do anything possible to shun them from any type of interaction, whether it is beating them or tearing them from limb. Then we go into the naked mole rats. This is one of my favorites, particularly because they too have a hierarchy in which the queen has a superpower. But before I get into that, know that there is a queen, there is a female, and they are males. So there are non-breeding females and males, and then there are breeding males. The reason why there are non-breeding females is because of this superpower. The queen has the ability, for some odd reason, to inhibit puberty within her colony. This allows for her to be the sole procreator out of any single one of the members. So she allows for a few men to be able to undergo this process in order for them to mate with her. So the females are in charge of taking care of the kids, and they're also soldiers for any intruders. But other than that, they can't breed. But this doesn't mean that they're like that forever. In fact, the males and females that decide to separate from the colony, studies have shown from the Smithsonian magazine that they actually have the ability after 8 days to undergo the process. It's mind-boggling. I have no idea how the queen is capable of doing it, but this can show to you the amount of power that a female has within the animal kingdom. She can inhibit her members from undergoing puberty. But the queen is not born into this. She has to fight for it. In fact, the females fight to the very death to decide who the queen is. And that is particularly why they are more dominant than the males. The queen is the top of the hierarchy. And witnessing them fight to the death actually instills fear within the men. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And then we get down to the matriarchs. And this is mainly because bonobos monkeys don't exert dominance frequently in order to establish that they're in charge. The females, in fact, do it through sexual interaction. Sex is a key role within the bonobos monkey community. Men are known to be receptive and submissive towards the women, whether they like it or not. If she's in the mood, she's in the mood, and they will have to succumb to her desires. And in fact, this happens with same sex and opposite sex. And it usually happens through what they consider reconciliation. Studies have shown from the New York Times, their Science Times catalog, that the bonobos monkey actually, after a fight, they will come together by rubbing their genitalia together. The the females of this community are obviously the sole leaders and caretakers. They ensure that their community thrives, and this typically happens within what we know as womanhood and sisterhood. There is a strong bond, a social bond between the females of this community. It's usually seen when an outside male tries to interfere by being sexually abusive towards a female or abusive in any way towards the children of the community. They will gather around and they will literally beat the crap out of the man. It usually ends with genitalia possibly being severed, ears being torn, eyes being gouged out. As gruesome as it may sound, that is what they do. And the men of their community see it as a form of protection and honor to be among them. Long story short, bonobo monkeys, particularly the females, are not to mess with. I've given you various examples as to how men are not the sole image of dominance and power in the animal kingdom. As you can see, among insects and mammals alike, females possess not only status and significance, but also the ability to maintain order and survival. Don't you ever wonder why we tend to weigh so heavily on the idea that masculinity is a representation of strength and power? Wouldn't you consider your mother a powerful and strong woman? Well, just so you know, females in the animal kingdom are mothers too. So when you go out into the wild, your first instinct shouldn't be to sexualize an animal on behalf of its sex by asking, is it a boy or is it a girl? Instead, you should acknowledge its raw power as it is. Because someday you could be caught in the path of a female bonobo monkey, and she might call up her sisters if necessary. Thank you.